You ever hear about those stories that just don't sit right with you? The ones that linger in the air like a chill you can't quite shake. The kind that burrow under your skin and whisper, "There's more here than meets the eye." Let me take you into one of those stories tonight. Now, before we go too deep, let me just say, if you're someone who finds yourself tangled up in tales like these, where the truth hides beneath years of silence, where nothing is as it seems, you'll want to stay close. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a warning, a revelation. And for one mother, it was everything she thought she'd lost forever. A little girl, 6 years old, vanished into thin air on what should have been a forgettable Tuesday morning. No storms, no strange vehicles, no screams. Just a clear suburban sunrise in the quiet town of Rosefield, Illinois. The child, her name was Eliza Hayward, left home with her pink backpack strapped on, lunchbox swinging from one hand, ready for school, a school just 2 blocks away. She never made it. She had walked that same path more times than anyone could count. But that morning, she vanished somewhere between the crack in the sidewalk and the stop sign at Elm and Ridge. Her mother, Claire Hayward, tried not to worry at first. Kids can get distracted, right? Maybe she stopped to look at the ducks in the canal. Maybe she ran into a friend. But 15 minutes turned into 30, 30 into a frantic hour, and when the school office confirmed that Eliza had never arrived, Claire's world cracked open. The next 8 years were a blur of flyers, candlelight vigils, searches in the woods, drained ponds, knocking on doors, pleading with the press, following dead-end leads from psychics, strangers, and supposed witnesses. Claire never stopped, even when everyone else did, even when the news stopped reporting, even when neighbors stopped making eye contact. She never stopped. But grief doesn't just sit quietly in a corner, it spreads into your finances, your relationships, your soul. And on a grey Thursday morning, 8 years after Eliza vanished, Claire sat at her kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills she couldn't afford to pay the coffee in her cup, long since gone cold. That's when her phone buzzed. The caller ID was blank, just a local number she didn't recognize. These days, calls like that were rare, and when they did come, they were almost always cruel. Sick people pretending to know something, others offering help, for a price. But something in her gut told her to pick up. "Mrs. Hayward," the voice said, calm, formal, but carrying a weight beneath the words. "This is Detective Ramon Vega, with the County Sheriff's Department. I need to speak with you about your daughter's case." Now, I don't have to tell you what that does to a person hearing that out of nowhere. Claire nearly dropped the phone. Her mind went blank except for one pounding thought. Have they found her? Vega wouldn't say over the phone, only that electricians working at a long-abandoned house out by Willow Hollow Road had found something. Some items they believed might have belonged to Eliza. Claire scribbled the address on the back of a power bill, knocking over the salt shaker as she reached for a pen. She didn't even hear the rest of what Vega was saying. She was already grabbing her purse. The drive took her past Ghosts, the elementary school where Eliza never arrived, the church where she'd lit 1,000 candles, the empty lot where they'd once gathered volunteers, grid-mapped search areas, and hoped. But hope can be cruel when it runs dry. Willow Hollow was barely a road at all, just a rutted path weaving through thick trees and silence. The house was a one-story wreck, windows shattered or boarded over, porch sagging like a broken limb. Grass up to the knees, paint peeled into scales. Police tape fluttered like a warning. Detective Vega met her near the edge of the property. He looked tired, younger than she'd imagined, but seasoned, like someone who'd walked too many dark paths. "Mrs. Hayward," he said, "we found something in the crawlspace." She followed him around back, past evidence markers and cameras clicking. The foundation had gaps wide enough for shadows to breathe through. A wooden panel lay pried open, revealing a narrow black hole into the earth. Vega handed her gloves and booties. "The forensics team cleared most of it, but it's still considered an active scene," he said. "What you're about to see isn't easy." Inside the crawlspace, the air smelled of mold, soil, and old despair. Claire crawled behind Vega, duck-walking through the narrow tunnel lit by portable lamps. Then she saw it. A child-sized mattress, red once, now filthy and stained. A Hello Kitty poster tacked to the wall, edges curled with age. Ceramic plates with fossilized food. A child's plastic water bottle. And clothes that took Claire's knees out from under her. Denim overalls with a sunflower patch she had sewn herself. A green and yellow striped shirt folded beside it. A pink backpack, worn but unmistakable. The image hit like a bullet to the heart. "Eliza was here," she whispered. Vega nodded solemnly. He explained that the forensic evidence showed someone had lived in that crawl space for weeks, maybe longer. DNA on the plates, hair samples, a chain attached to one of the posts, not for storage, for captivity, and all of it had been 15 miles from home. You know what's the worst part? That house, that road, it wasn't even searched back then. Not thoroughly. They hadn't imagined a 6-year-old could have been taken so far. They'd looked in a 10-mile radius. Eliza had been just beyond it. Right there, all those years. Invisible. Claire asked who owned the place, an old man named Walter Macready. Lived in assisted living now, said he'd rented it out through some property company years back. Payments in cash, tenant only met once, paid on time, never raised suspicion. As they walked back outside, Claire noticed a faded sign behind a wall of weeds. Willow Properties for lease. No website, no number. The truth was rotting beneath years of disuse, hidden right in front of them. Claire drove straight to the old neighborhood afterward. Something in her refused to let the past rest. She walked Eliza's route, those 2 little blocks she'd traveled every day, past the big oak where kids once built fairy houses, past the crossing guard stand where Mr. Hayes used to wave and hand out smiley face stickers. Only he hadn't been there that morning. Called out for a doctor's appointment, 1 missing pair of eyes, 1 open window of time. That was all it took. The next stop was the school, where memories waited like old ghosts in the hallway tiles. The principal was new, a kind woman named Dr. Celia Monroe. She'd only been there a few years, but the case had left a legacy. A plaque still hung in the hall. Eliza's photo, Forever 6. They sat down in her office, quiet except for the hum of the heater. Dr. Monroe pulled up old personnel records, names of staff who had left in the years after Eliza vanished, a janitor with a forgotten assault charge, a few early retirees, a music teacher who passed away, and then a familiar name. The crossing guard, Mr. Hayes. Retired 13 months ago, no forwarding address. Claire's mind flicked back to the cash rental payments on the house. They had stopped, also 13 months ago. Coincidence? That's what she told herself, but a whisper in her mind had already started speaking louder, and it wouldn't shut up. Claire left the school building in a daze, the sound of her own steps echoing behind her like reminders of all the times she'd walked those halls with a purpose. Parent-teacher conferences, science fairs, art shows. That space used to be filled with laughter and Eliza's bouncing footsteps. Now it was just air, silence, and ghosts. As she got into her car, her fingers trembled on the steering wheel. The words from Dr. Monroe played in her head over and over. 13 months ago. That's when the janitor left. That's when the crossing guard retired. That's when the rental payments stopped. And that's when Claire felt the shift, that quiet slide of the universe, telling her this wasn't over. Not yet. She didn't know where she was driving until she arrived. The gas station hadn't changed a bit. Same blue and white sign. Same flickering, open 24 hours light. The kind of place where time never seemed to pass, where it still smelled like cheap coffee, burnt rubber, and cleaning spray. She pulled up to pump 3, out of habit more than anything, slid her card in, and the screen beeped. See cashier. Of course it would. It was just that kind of day. She stepped inside, brushing past racks of gum, half-off car chargers, and scratch-off lottery tickets. She barely noticed the man at the counter until he turned to leave. And her heart stopped. He was older now, more hunched, slower. But Claire knew that profile. The shape of his shoulders, that thick white hair combed carefully over his balding crown. Mr. Hayes. The same crossing guard who had smiled at her daughter every morning. The man who had called in sick the day Eliza disappeared. They locked eyes. For a moment, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Claire, he said gently, as though the name burned his tongue, I heard about the house, about the crawl space. I'm so sorry, truly. His voice was gentle, too gentle. She forced a smile. You're traveling? He nodded and gestured vaguely out the door. Got a little camper out there, traveling with my niece. Just the 2 of us. She's a good kid. Claire's gaze shifted toward the RV. It was old cream-colored with rust creeping up the sides like ivy. In the window, a girl sat at a small table, hunched over something. Blonde, maybe 14, maybe older. Her skin was pale, her body language closed off. She had a spoon in one hand and was lazily eating from a container ice cream, it looked like. But what Claire noticed first were the freckles. 3 on the bridge of her nose, perfectly spaced. A triangle. Below that, 2 more. Exactly like the ones Claire used to kiss goodnight every single evening. That unique little constellation that made Eliza's face unforgettable. Her breath caught in her throat. Is that your niece? She asked softly, unable to stop herself. Mr. Hayes stiffened. The warmth drained from his face like someone flipping a switch. "She's very shy," he muttered, stepping between Claire and the door. "We've got a long drive ahead. Better be going." It wasn't just defensive, it was fear. He hustled toward the RV like a man trying to shield a secret. "Sarah, get away from the window," he barked as he climbed inside. The door slammed with force, and seconds later the engine coughed and sputtered to life. The camper lurched away from the pump, with the gas hose still attached. It whipped free, clattering to the ground, and Mr. Hayes didn't even look back. He sped off onto the road, disappearing into the horizon. Claire didn't chase him. She didn't need to. She had seen everything. Back at home, the pot of pasta she had left on the stove had hardened into a block. The whole kitchen smelled like burned starch and bitterness. But Claire didn't notice. She was already on her laptop, fingers flying across the keys. She looked up his name, every mention she could find. Harold Hayes. 30 years of crossing guard service, local community awards, newsletters from the school district celebrating him as a neighborhood staple. But then, something new. An article. Pine Hollow RV Park celebrates 20 years. It was fluff community stuff, but halfway down she saw him, standing in front of that same RV, smile tight, one hand on the shoulder of a blonde girl whose face was turned away from the camera. Harold Hayes, our newest full-time resident, says he chose Pine Hollow for the peace and quiet. "It's the perfect place to homeschool my niece," he told us. "She's all I have." Claire didn't sleep that night. At 5 a.m., she was in her car, address of Pine Hollow RV Park scribbled on a yellow sticky note. Just to look, she told herself, just to confirm that she was wrong. But the closer she got, the more that whisper inside her heart turned into a scream. The RV park sat beneath a forest of pine trees, mist curling between the trunks like smoke. Rows of campers stretched out across gravel lots. Dogs barked in the distance. Someone was already grilling something bacon, maybe. A woman with a name tag reading Brenda greeted her warmly at the office. "Looking for a long-term spot?" she asked, with a chipper smile. "Lot of folks come out here to start over." Claire nodded, "Just exploring my options." Brenda walked her through the park, past motorhomes and trailers, sharing little tidbits like a tour guide at a museum. "That's old Pete in Lot 14, fought in 2 wars. Makes the best chili this side of the Rockies. And over there, Lot 31, that's Mr. Hayes. Quiet fella. Keeps to himself. Homeschools his niece, sweet girl, smart as a whip." "Homeschools?" Claire repeated. "Yep, says public school didn't challenge her enough. I've seen her reading biology textbooks bigger than my arm. He's devoted, that man." Lot 31 was tucked away at the back. Tarp panels strung up like curtains gave the area a weird kind of privacy, not natural, not neighborly. Claire crept closer. Through a slit in the tarp, she caught a glimpse of the girl again. Same hair, same pale skin, sitting at a tiny table, sketching something. And on the table, a tub of strawberry ice cream. Claire's stomach dropped. She watched as a dollop dripped onto the girl's arm left side, just below the elbow. Seconds later, the skin there flared red. A familiar angry rash, angry and quick, blooming like fire across her skin. Claire had seen that exact reaction before, dozens of times. The way Eliza's body used to break out when she came into contact with strawberry protein. A rare allergy, a localized reaction, one the allergist had called almost medically unique. And it was happening again, on that girl who Harold Hayes called Sarah, who thought her parents were dead. Claire didn't need more proof. She had it. Claire backed away from the tarp, her breath shallow and ragged. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, fingers numb as she tapped in Detective Vega's number. He picked up on the second ring. "Detective Vega." "It's Claire," she gasped. "I saw her. I saw Eliza. She's alive." There was a pause, not from disbelief, but from the sudden awareness in his voice, like he'd been bracing for this. "Where are you?" "Pine Hollow RV Park, Lot 31. Harold Hayes is here. He has her. He calls her Sarah. She thinks he's her grandfather. But it's her, Detective. She has the freckles. And the allergy." "The allergy?" "Strawberries," Claire said, nearly breathless. "Left elbow. She was eating strawberry ice cream, and I saw the rash form exactly like it used to. Same reaction, same spot, same everything. Dr. Polani at Children's Hospital documented it in detail. You can check the files. No one else would react like that." That seemed to be enough for Vega. His voice changed immediately, sharp, clipped, professional. "Get back to the park's front entrance. Don't let him see you. Don't engage with her. We're on our way now. Units are being dispatched." "Should I stay?" "Claire, this is now an active retrieval. I need you safe. If he sees you again, he could run. We need the element of surprise." Do you understand? She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. I understand. Claire made her way back toward the main office, her eyes locked on her rearview mirror the whole time. She parked near the bulletin board and watched the road like a hawk. Brenda, still behind the counter, gave her a warm smile through the office window, completely unaware of what was about to descend on this quiet little campground. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Then she heard the quiet crunch of tires, not one set but several. 3 police SUVs, unmarked but unmistakable, slid into the lot like wolves on a hunt. They didn't use sirens. They didn't need to. Detective Vega stepped out of the first vehicle, already issuing orders to the officers with him. Claire opened her door, but before she could speak, Vega crossed to her. Stay here, he said firmly. You've done more than enough. If this goes how I hope, you're going to see your daughter again. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she was only minutes away from holding her child again after 8 long years of darkness. But nothing ever came that easy. Officers moved down the path with tactical precision, spreading wide, approaching from both flanks. Some were in uniform, some plain clothes, all of them focused. Lot 31 came into view. The tarp walls, the RV behind them, the humming from inside. One of the officers gave a silent hand signal, then another. The unit stopped. The RV was gone, just an empty space where it had been. Fresh tire tracks dug into the gravel. The outline of where the vehicle had been was still visible like the negative space left when a puzzle piece is stolen. Vega's radio crackled with a report. He's gone, the voice said, low and tense. Looks like he left 20 to 30 minutes ago. Used the service road at the back of the property. It connects to the old forest access trail. Claire's mouth went dry. He knew. Somehow Harold had known she was there. That the time was running out, or maybe it was just part of his routine, always ready to run. She was shaking. Where would he go? Brenda ran from the office, eyes wide. What's happening? Is Sarah okay? Did something happen? Vega pulled up a photo of Harold on his phone and held it up. This man. When did he leave? Brenda blinked. Harold, just before you arrived, said something about camping up near Cedar Creek. That's where he always goes. Off Forest Road 49, there's an old clearing up there near the fire tower. Says no one ever bothers him there. Coordinates? Vega barked. Brenda nodded, rattled but responsive. 12 miles up, turnoffs marked by a blue ribbon on a pine. He's talked about it before. Says it's where he taught Sarah how to fish. Claire's heart plummeted. He's taken her to the middle of nowhere. Vega was already shouting into his radio. Roadblocks, intercept points. He ordered every available unit towards Cedar Creek. Officers sprinted back to their vehicles. Claire, Vega said, his voice steely, you cannot follow us this time. But she was already getting into her car. He reached for her door. I'm serious, this could get violent. She looked him dead in the eye. If that's my daughter up there, I'm not going to sit in a parking lot while she's taken away again. Vega held her gaze for a moment, then nodded once tightly. You don't get close. You stay behind the perimeter. I swear. They sped up the mountain road, twisting through pines and fading sunlight. The forest grew denser, older. Shadows stretched across the pavement like warning signs. Claire's hands were clenched on the wheel. Her eyes never left the taillights of Vega's SUV. 10 miles. 11. Then the radio in Vega's car sparked to life. We see the vehicle. Repeat. We have a visual on the RV. Parked near the creek, just beyond the clearing. Claire's breath caught. It was happening. Everything was happening. When they reached the clearing, the scene unfolded like a movie in slow motion. The RV was there, half shielded by trees. Windows drawn, door shut. Officers fanned out, forming a tight perimeter. Their voices were calm, their movements careful. No sirens, no lights. Vega raised a megaphone. Mr. Hayes, he called. This is Detective Vega. We're not here to hurt anyone, but we need you to step out. We know the girl inside is Eliza Hayward. Silence, then movement. The RV door creaked open. Harold stepped into view, rifle in one hand, the other arm wrapped tightly around the girl. Eliza, older, taller, hair dyed blonde, but unmistakably her. Those eyes, those freckles, that terror in her face that didn't come from not knowing Claire, but from fearing everything else. Her face said it all. She didn't understand what was happening. Didn't know why men with guns were screaming at her grandfather. Didn't understand why the life she thought was normal was suddenly collapsing around her. Don't hurt him, she screamed. He's all I have. Harold's grip tightened. You don't get to take her. I gave her a life. I kept her safe. Vega's voice was calm, even. We just want to talk. Put the rifle down, Mr. Hayes. Let her go. She's my daughter now. Harold, Claire shouted, stepping forward before anyone could stop her. She's mine. For just a moment, Eliza looked at her. Just a moment. And her eyes flickered a blink, a pause. Recognition, or confusion, or something buried too deep. Then she ran, wrenched herself out of Harold's grip and sprinted toward the police, toward safety, toward the mother she didn't recognize. And for one terrifying second, Harold raised the rifle. Time stopped. But before he could fire, a taser crackled and he collapsed, twitching on the ground. The rifle dropped harmlessly to the dirt. Eliza fell into the arms of an officer, sobbing. Claire stood frozen, arms open, tears running. But the girl, her daughter, looked at her like a stranger. "My name is Sarah," she whispered, shaking. "My mum's dead. Who are you?" The girl they'd called Sarah, the girl Claire knew in her bones was Eliza, stood trembling in the clearing, her eyes darting between the ambulance, the officers, and the woman she'd just called a liar. Claire didn't move. She wanted to run to her daughter, fall to her knees, wrap her arms around her, and never let go. But she knew if she moved too fast, said the wrong word, raised her voice even a notch too high, it could shatter everything. So she waited. Let the paramedics step in. Let them speak in soft tones, treat the scratches on her arms, clean the blood from the IV spot where she'd pulled it out hours ago. Let them call her Sarah for now. Claire could wait. She'd waited 8 years. The hospital room was small, sterile, and too bright. Claire stood just outside the door, separated from her daughter by a pane of glass and a hallway full of doctors and social workers, murmuring theories behind clipboards. The girl sat up in the bed, her back straight, her arms folded defensively across her chest. She looked like a prisoner. "I want to see my grandpa," she kept saying. "He needs his insulin. He didn't do anything wrong. You people don't understand." Every time Claire entered the room, even just a few steps, the girl's eyes narrowed. Her mouth tightened into a line. The hostility was almost physical. "I don't know you," she hissed once. Claire backed away. Dr. Renner, the child psychologist assigned to her case, took Claire aside into a quiet consultation room. There was a mural on the wall, cartoon trees, squirrels, a river that looked like a crayon drawing. It was supposed to be comforting. It wasn't. "She's not ready," Dr. Renner said gently. "She's confused, terrified. Everything she's known has just been ripped away." "She knew me," Claire whispered. "For just a second she looked at me and—" "She wanted to," Dr. Renner said, "but her memories, they've been rewritten." Claire swallowed. "Can that be fixed?" The psychologist hesitated. "Sometimes," she said, "sometimes the brain buries trauma so deeply it can't be unearthed easily, especially in children. He had 8 years to teach her another life. 8 years of reinforcing that her parents died. That he was all she had." Claire closed her eyes, pressing her palms into her forehead. "He made her believe we were dead." "He made her believe he saved her," Dr. Renner said, almost to herself. "The most dangerous kind of kidnapper isn't the violent one. It's the one who convinces the child they were rescued." Rescued. The word tasted bitter in Claire's mouth. Across town, in a beige interrogation room that smelled of sweat and stale coffee, Harold Hayes sat slumped in a metal chair, wrists shackled to a cold table. Detective Vega watched him for a long time before speaking. "You lied to her," Vega said. Harold blinked slowly, like the words didn't register. "I saved her," he mumbled. "You chained her to a mattress in a crawlspace. For her own safety, she didn't understand. She kept saying her parents were alive. She was confused. I had to help her." "You brainwashed her," Vega said flatly. Harold looked up sharply, eyes flashing. "You weren't there. You didn't see her, walking alone every morning. 6 years old, no one watching, no one noticing. Anyone could have taken her. I just did." Vega leaned forward. "You faked a newspaper, told her her parents died in a crash, showed her clippings you printed in your RV on an old inkjet printer." Harold smiled faintly. "You saw them, huh? I spent weeks on those, every detail. She believed them. She needed to. Children need security, stability." "She needed her mother," Vega said. Harold's expression flickered. "She had me." Claire stood again at the window to Eliza's room, or Sarah's room, depending on who you asked. The girl was awake now, sitting up, her arms still folded tight. Claire had learned not to speak unless spoken to, but something in her told her to try again. She entered quietly, sitting on the chair by the wall far enough to not crowd, close enough to be seen. "I remember your blanket," Claire said gently. "The purple one, with the clouds and stars. You wouldn't sleep without it, even in the summer." The girl didn't look at her. Claire kept going. "And the way you hated peas. You used to hide them under the edge of your plate and swear you'd eaten them all. I found them every time." A pause. "Then, my grandpa said my mom hated peas too." Claire smiled. She did. The girl looked up, just slightly. Those freckles, that expression. Do you remember the rainstorm? Claire asked, voice low. You were 5. We went to the park and got caught in a downpour. You said the thunder was ski monsters bowling. The corner of the girl's mouth twitched, almost imperceptibly. I don't remember, she said flatly. That's okay, Claire replied. I remember enough for both of us. That night, Claire returned home to the house that hadn't felt like a home in years. Eliza's room still sat frozen in time, stuffed animals on the shelf, tiny shoes by the closet, a half-drawn coloring book open on the desk. She sat on the edge of the bed, pulling out the photo box. One by one, she laid out the age progression images the artist had created Eliza at 8, 10, 12, 14. The freckles were always the same. The little triangle, the vertical line below it. Just like what she'd seen on the girl's face in that clearing. That's her, she thought, no matter what he told her. That's Eliza. But the girl didn't know, didn't believe it. Claire put her head in her hands and wept, for all the birthdays missed, the teeth lost, the books never read, the scraped knees never bandaged, for 8 years of silence. But morning would come, and with it another chance. The hospital allowed Claire 1 supervised visit per day. It was a strange rule, but Dr. Renner explained it carefully. The girl's brain had built up walls, and trying to tear them down too quickly could cause more damage than healing. So Claire followed every instruction, no matter how much it killed her to leave that sterile room each night with her daughter still calling herself Sarah. Claire began with stories. Nothing heavy, nothing that might seem threatening or confrontational, just little things. Did you know you used to name every squirrel in the park? She said one afternoon, seated in the visitor chair, while the girl Eliza, still Eliza, even if she didn't know it yet, colored absent-mindedly. You had one called Commander Tail. He was your favorite. You swore he could do flips. The girl didn't look up, but her hand stilled on the paper for just a second. I still like squirrels, she muttered, almost too low to hear. Claire smiled even as her heart ached. Yeah, you always did. Over the days that followed, Claire brought photos, carefully selected ones, not baby pictures that might overwhelm her daughter, but images from age 4 to 6. Pictures of her at the playground, on Halloween dressed as a tiny astronaut. A birthday party with a balloon crown sliding off her head. In one, she held a kitten. She named him Marshmallow, Claire said. He used to sleep at the foot of her bed every night. The girl studied the photo a little longer that time. That cat looks familiar. Claire swallowed the lump in her throat. He passed a few years ago. Got old, but he was waiting at the door every day for you. For a long time. Meanwhile, Harold sat in a correctional facility infirmary. His diabetes had flared up under the stress. He'd lost weight too fast and refused to speak to anyone but his appointed public defender. Detective Vega paid him one last visit. I don't care about your excuses anymore, Vega told him. You took her life, maybe not her heartbeat, but everything else. She's happy, Harold rasped from his bed, arms cuffed to the frame. She always was. Until you people showed up and poisoned her mind. She's terrified. She doesn't know who she is. She knows she's mine, he said, closing his eyes. And that's all that matters. On the 8th day, something changed. Claire entered the room as usual, soft knock, slow movements, no sudden emotional outbursts. She found the girl sitting up, a sketchbook in her lap. The room was quiet except for the soft scratching of pencil on paper. Claire sat in the usual chair. After a moment, the girl said, He told me you died. Claire froze. Every year on the same date. He would show me the newspaper article, the crash. He'd make me read it out loud. Claire cleared her throat. Did you ever question it? The girl stared at her drawing. It looked like a tree, gnarled and bent, surrounded by shadow. Sometimes, she whispered. But when I'd say something, when I said I remembered a song, or a smell, or a face, he'd tell me it was just a dream. She looked up now. Was it? Claire didn't rush, didn't cry. Instead, she pulled a folded sheet of paper from her purse and passed it over. The girl unfolded it slowly. It was a medical document, neatly highlighted. Diagnosis, localized contact dermatitis, allergic response to strawberry proteins, left antecubital region. There was a photo, a close-up from when Eliza had been 4. Her arm covered in a red rash in the exact spot she'd scratched at during the RV park scene. The girl stared at it for a long time. Then quietly, He never let me see my own medical records, said they were complicated. They're not, Claire replied. They're yours. You can see all of them now. The girl didn't say anything, but when Claire stood to leave, she whispered, Can you bring more pictures tomorrow? The next day, Claire brought a small box. She didn't dump it out, didn't overwhelm, just one thing at a time. First, a small worn book with glittery lettering on the front, Luna the Brave Astronaut. "You made me read this 100 times, Claire said with a smile. "You used to sleep with it under your pillow." The girl opened it slowly, flipped to a page in the middle, her eyes locked onto a doodle in the corner, a tiny crescent moon with stick arms and a smiling face. "I drew that," she whispered. "Yes," Claire said, her throat tight. "You did." By the 12th day, the girl Eliza no longer flinched when Claire called her by name. She didn't correct her anymore either. She started asking questions about the neighborhood, her old friends, her favorite playground, a song Claire used to sing in the car, and one afternoon she asked to see the house. They drove in silence. Claire didn't say much, didn't want to push. She let Eliza absorb everything on her own timeline. The street was quiet when they arrived. New fences had been installed, gardens rearranged, but the house was still the same 2 stories, brick trim, white shutters. Eliza stared at the front door like it was a ghost. Claire opened it with a slow creak and stood aside. Eliza stepped in, cautiously, every motion hesitant, like she expected to be caught. Her eyes wandered from wall to wall. Her feet shuffled forward. She stopped in front of the hallway mirror, the one with a faint crack in the corner, one Claire had never gotten around to fixing. Eliza touched the crack. "I remember breaking this," she said softly. "I was trying to twirl in my princess dress and knocked over the vase." "You weren't mad?" Claire smiled. "Because you apologized and cleaned it up without me even asking." Eliza stared at her reflection. She was crying, not loudly, just a silent stream. That night they sat side by side on the edge of Eliza's old bed, the same mattress, same blanket, same faint scent of lavender that Claire had used on the sheets. "I don't know who I am," Eliza whispered. "You're you," Claire said. "You always have been. I have memories of him, good ones. He didn't hurt me every day. Some days we laughed. He taught me chess. He helped me with math. You can remember all of that," Claire said. "Nothing about being Eliza means you have to erase everything that came after. But you deserve the truth. You were stolen." Eliza looked at her hands. "He called me his miracle." Claire reached out slowly, took her hand in both of hers. "You were mine first." The story exploded in the news within days. Once the sheriff's department made the official announcement, "Missing child Eliza Hayward, located alive after 8 years," the media descended like vultures. Trucks lined the street, cameras flashed through windows, reporters stood outside the hospital, the courthouse, even the gates of the RV park where Eliza had once unknowingly lived as Sarah Hayes. They didn't care about the nuance. They wanted the headline, "Girl found after 8 years in captivity." Claire kept Eliza inside. The therapists had warned her even positive attention could feel like an invasion, especially for someone who had spent most of her life in isolation with only one voice defining truth. But the pressure didn't stop. News vans, mail, strangers on the sidewalk crying and saying they prayed for this day. Some claimed they always knew she was alive. Others accused Claire of negligence. "You let your 6-year-old walk to school alone," a woman once shouted across the grocery parking lot. Claire didn't answer. She just kept her hand on Eliza's shoulder, grounding both of them in reality. Because the world wasn't interested in what came next. It never was. Harold's arraignment happened one rainy Thursday morning, barely 2 weeks after his arrest. He sat shackled, wearing an oversized beige jumpsuit, his thinning hair combed neatly, as if the presentation might spare him from judgment. He was charged with felony kidnapping, false imprisonment, child abuse, and multiple counts of fraud, among other things. He pleaded not guilty. Claire sat in the back of the courtroom. Eliza did not attend. Her therapist said it was too soon, too dangerous, and Claire agreed. But when the judge read the charges aloud and listed each year Eliza had been missing, Claire counted under her breath. 6, 7, 8, 9. Her hands curled into fists. Because while Harold might spend the rest of his life in prison, no sentence would ever match the years Eliza had lost. The birthdays she'd spent drawing her cake in a notebook, the friends she never made, the future she didn't even know she'd been denied. Justice was a word people liked to throw around, but Claire didn't believe in it anymore. Not really. The first time Eliza went outside alone, it was to check the mailbox. Claire watched from the kitchen window, heart in her throat, as her daughter crossed the lawn slowly, her arms tucked in, eyes darting left and right. The world was loud. Birds screamed in the trees. A neighbor's lawnmower growled to life. A car drove by, blasting music, and Eliza flinched. But she didn't run. She took a deep breath, opened the box, pulled out the mail, and came back. It seemed like nothing. But Claire cried anyway. School was out of the question for now. Too much stimulation, too many questions. So Claire arranged a tutor, a gentle woman named Miss Reynolds, who taught in small pieces and never pushed. Eliza liked her. "I'm behind," she said once, frowning at a multiplication sheet. "You're not," Miss Reynolds replied. "You're just learning at your own pace." Eliza didn't argue, but Claire noticed she kept the worksheets, later redid them at night, practicing again and again. Not for grades, not for approval, for control. Therapy was harder. Some days Eliza refused to speak at all. Other days she would spiral, bouncing between questions and fury and silence. "He lied to me." "Yes," Dr. Renner would say, "but not always." "That's true too." "I don't know who I am." "You're someone finding her way." That line always seemed to soothe her. Finding her way, because the truth was, she didn't feel like Eliza yet. She didn't feel like Sarah either. She was floating untethered between names, between histories, between lives. One night, Claire found her in the hallway, staring at the framed photo of the two of them taken a week before the disappearance. They were sitting in the grass, arms around each other, Eliza's missing front tooth on full display. "I don't remember this," Eliza said quietly. Claire stepped beside her. "You were upset that morning. Your shoes were too tight. You said they made your toes mad." Eliza smiled faintly. "That sounds like me. I let you wear your sneakers instead, the sparkly ones with the stars." Eliza looked down at her bare feet. "Do you still have them?" Claire didn't answer, just turned and walked to the hall closet. Opened a small wooden box tucked behind the coats. The shoes were there, worn, scuffed, too small now, but unmistakably hers. Eliza held them gently, as if they might fall apart. "I think I remember how they felt," she whispered. "Squishy, warm." Claire swallowed hard. "You used to call them your running shoes." "Did I like running?" "You loved it." Eliza looked up. "I'd like to try again, someday." In the weeks that followed, she asked for more pictures, more stories, more pieces of a life she no longer remembered but desperately wanted to believe in. Claire answered every question, pulled out every journal, every drawing, every piece of evidence that said, "You were here. You mattered." Because that was the truth, even if Eliza didn't remember it all yet. Her body did, her freckles did, her allergy did, her art, her handwriting, the way she hummed that weird melody while thinking, the way she tilted her head when confused, the way she held her fork, crooked slightly to the left. Claire saw her daughter in 1,000 little ways, and slowly Eliza began to see her too. It took another month before Eliza asked to see him. Claire was in the kitchen, slicing apples, when Eliza spoke the words like they were made of glass. "I want to talk to him." Claire didn't answer immediately. She set down the knife, wiped her hands, turned. "Eliza?" "I know," she said. "I know it might not be safe. I know he's in jail. But I need to hear it. From him. I need to know why." Claire nodded, her heart heavy. The arrangements took time, but eventually, through a victim-approved, therapist-supervised session, it happened. They met in a sterile room. Blue walls, a steel table, 2 guards standing in opposite corners. Eliza sat across from the man who had raised her under a false name. Harold looked older, smaller, eyes hollow. He opened his mouth first. "You look like your mother." Eliza said nothing. "I loved you," he went on. "I did everything for you. I gave you a life. I protected you from—" "You stole me," she said, her voice hard. His mouth opened, then closed. He tried again. "You were alone. She let you walk to school." "I was 6, she snapped, "and you watched me every day. You planned it." Harold flinched like she'd struck him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "but I didn't know how to let go. You became everything. You were my reason." "I'm not your daughter," Eliza said quietly. "You taught me how to read, how to play chess, how to tie my shoes. But you also taught me how to be afraid, how to doubt myself, how to believe lies." She stood. "I needed the truth, and you never gave it to me." Harold said nothing. He looked at her with a brokenness that might have once been regret, but Eliza didn't care anymore. She turned and walked away, and didn't look back. The first time she introduced herself as Eliza again was at the library. A volunteer program, nothing big, just shelving books. Claire had driven her there, waited in the car, but when the librarian asked her name, Eliza paused, then said it. "Eliza Hayward." And she smiled afterward, shy, nervous but proud. Claire cried the entire drive home. Some things never came back. Certain memories stayed foggy, some feelings never resurfaced. Eliza admitted she still heard Harold's voice in her head sometimes, when she made decisions, when she doubted herself, but therapy continued, healing continued, and the space between the past and the present grew wider and more manageable. Eliza started journaling, sketching, running. She joined a virtual art class, she dyed her hair back to brown, and one afternoon she held up 2 sheets of paper, one with the name Sarah, one with Eliza. "I used to think I had to pick one," she said to Claire. "And now?" Eliza smiled. "I think I'm both. But I want to live as Eliza now. That's who I was. That's who I want to be again." On her 15th birthday, Claire decorated the kitchen with streamers and old photos. A cake sat in the center of the table, chocolate, Eliza's favorite. A single gift box rested beside it. Eliza opened it to find her old drawing, one Claire had kept pressed in a book for years. It was faded now, wrinkled at the edges, but still clear. A family of 3, hand in hand, with smiling stick faces. In the sky above, a caption written in childish block letters, "My mom is the best." Eliza traced her finger across the drawing, then looked up. "I remember this." Claire blinked away tears. "You do?" Eliza nodded. "I drew it in kindergarten. You hung it on the fridge. You used to call it our forever family picture." Eliza folded the paper gently, then placed it back in the box. "I want to hang it again." They never called her a miracle child. They didn't need to, because she wasn't a miracle. She was real, not a headline, not a tragedy. A girl with freckles and a sketchbook. A girl who once believed her whole world fit in a camper, who learned it was actually far bigger, far messier, and far more beautiful. A girl who had been taken and had come back. And Claire? She no longer waited at the window. She no longer feared the silence, because now each morning she heard footsteps in the hallway, heard the bathroom door creak, heard the quiet sounds of her daughter waking up to a life that was finally, completely, hers. If this story moved you even just a little, take a moment right now to hit the like button. Subscribe for more stories like this, where truth hides in the shadows, and light somehow still finds a way in. And if you know someone who needs to believe in second chances, share this. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remember that the lost aren't always gone. Sometimes they're just waiting to be found.